Hi, this is Joe Chambers. Welcome to Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage, the Vault series. This is part one of a two-part interview I did with one of my most favorite people and musicians. It was one of the first interviews I did, and we actually did it at my house. Pig Robbins is one of the most talented and funniest people I've ever known. He's played on so many hit records and has been the go-to session keyboardist in Nashville since Floyed Cramer had his big hit Last Date. Hope you enjoy it, and if you do, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. Pig Robbins. Pig, would you play the intro to Behind Closed Doors for us? I just can't get tired of that, man. It's so cool to be sitting here in the room with you when you're doing that, and I think people are really going to be amazed to know that was you and not Charlie Rich, that did that. Not knocking Charlie at all, but I'm just saying that
Charlie was a great piano player, man. But he was more into blues and jazz, But he was a great piano player.
And another classic riff that you just came up with on the spur of the moment, which is totally amazing, was the Crystal Gale Brown Eyes Blue. Could you do that too? When did you know that you wanted to be a musician?
Well, I always like to try to play what I heard on the radio, So I've ever since I've been old enough to remember, probably.
What did you listen to on the radio?
Music?
Yeah.
Oh, country, of course.
And you had sight earlier in life, right?
Yeah.
Was that a large reason that you perhaps went to playing a musical instrument?
Well, I don't know if it was or not, but I went to the blind school for the blind, and they came around when I was in second grade, said, asking the kids if they wanted to take piano lessons, and I said, yeah, I'd like to, because I thought, after I learned the keyboard a little bit, I'd be playing what I heard on the radio, but they taught classical stuff, and they frowned on country or boogie woogie or.
So you started out with piano? That was your instrument then?
Yeah.
Did you ever pick up any other instruments?
I played trumpet in the band, school band.
Did you excel at that too?
Yeah, made first chair or whatever they call it.
Do you still play?
No.
Hurts your jaws, doesn't it?
Well, back in the 50s when I got out of school and was trying to make a living with music, the rock and roll deal was going on, and the sax was the thing, not trumpet,
Yeah,
so.
that's what Cheryl played.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you performed in front of other people other than the family?
I don't know if this is the first time or not, but I remember we went to this club, a bunch of us teenagers, wasn't really even supposed to be in it, and I think there was five of us, I guess, and we made $1.25 a piece.
That was in the 50s?
Yeah.
So that you could probably have bought about 15 Cokes then.
Yeah, probably.
Which was not bad. That's
or five beers, A beer was about 20 or 25 cents.
So we had a beer then. Okay. And so then what progressed after that, Pig? What was your next?
Oh, I don't know. Just playing from club to club, and.
Were you in bands or just solo?
Oh, no, bands, yeah.
Country music?
Yeah, country and rockabilly. Rockabilly was the thing then. And.
Were you influenced by Elvis?
Yeah, I guess I was, and Jerry Lee and Carl Perkins, that whole Memphis deal,
Probably Jerry Lee maybe more than Elvis, you think?
Well, yeah.
And so what got you into playing in the studio?
Well, I met this met this couple, and we tried to. They were songwriters, but they couldn't play any instrument, so I could play the piano, and we'd try to write songs together, and we'd make our own little home demos. Then back then you could write a song, put it down with a guitar and a vocal, or a piano and vocal, or whatever, and take it around, and publishers would listen to it and either accept it or reject it, whatever. Mm-hmm. But that's how I got started, taking our songs around and to publishers, and finally run into this guy named Murray Nash. He was with Mercury Records earlier in Acuff Rose and people back in the 50s and so forth. And anyway, he had started, or was going to start a independent label this is back in 57. So anyway, back then you could cut a session and like take it to New York, something like that, and lease it, and get what they call front money, mm-hmm. And get $5,000-10,000 or whatever, depending on how sold the company was on it. Anyway, so the guy, Murray, taught me into joining the union. And I went down and joined the union, and I played he had a session coming, so I played the session the day I joined the union, went and played the session, and didn't work another session for 3 or 4 months. Yeah. But anyway, that is the way I first started.
Do you remember the first record that you played on that was really a hit record?
Yeah, the first one ever was White Lightning with George Jones.
How old were you?
Well, that'd have been about 20.
20 years old?
Yeah.
And your very first record was White Lightning?
Yeah, 20 or 21. About 21, I guess, because we cut it in 58 and it came out in 59, so I'd have been 21.
And was that recorded in Nashville?
Yeah.
Do you remember where?
Yeah, it was over at Owen Bradley's studio then before Columbia bought it out.
So was it in the house or in the Quonset hut?
It was down in the basement.
In the basement of the house?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
that might have been before they ever had, they had the Quonset, but I don't know if they had, I think they had a filming studio back there then, mm-hmm. and did most of the recording down in the basement there. Mm-hmm.
And do you remember about how long it was before you just pretty much got booked all the time doing sessions, and when it just became like a full-time job?
Well, the more hit records you played on, of course your name got around and people would want to start using you more. But it was probably 61 before last half of 61 before I could start calling it a living,
Mm-hmm. And did you ever go out on the road and play, or did you pretty much stay in the studio?
No, I stayed in the studios pretty much because back then they didn't have any electronic pianos, Mm-hmm. The old Wurlitzer, I guess, electric Wurlitzer, like what I say was done on, was probably around, but they were so delicate that mm-hmm. the weather and so forth would get the reeds out of tune,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they actually had reeds in them.
Yeah, and the joints that most of the country people played in, if they had a piano, the piano would be tuned low or something, mm-hmm. or would be so bad out of tune it'd make everything else sound bad. So I didn't carry piano too much on the road. Jim Reeves had a piano, and Marty Robbins, I guess, was about the only 2 country people that I can remember that carried piano back that early,
Was there a particular artist or just a couple of artists that you did a whole lot of work for at that time that kept you pretty busy, or was it just across the board?
Just across the board.
What about producers?
Owen Bradley, Buddy Killen. Now he got me on the White Lightning deal, and he played bass on it, and so he got me. I'd been doing some demos for Tree when he was working for Tree, and he got me on the George Jones thing. So then I got to cutting with George every time he'd come in, and Owen Bradley started using me, and Chet would use me, but at the end, about 62, Shelby Singleton blew into town, and he just started using me all the time, you know, and he started doing a lot of business, you know, so it just kind of grew from that.
So, and now, do you remember your first session with Billy Sherrill?
Well, I had worked with Billy when he was the engineer, you know, uptown.
Oh, for Phillips?
Yeah. Now, I'm not sure if David Houston was the first artist he did, or I can't remember.
I think you're right. I think it was David. Almost Persuaded.
Yeah.
Did you play on that?
Yeah. I know that was one of the first hits that he had, but as far if it was the first artist, I can't remember, but it seemed like it was.
What was it like working with Owen Bradley?
I was scared to death of him because he was such he was such a great piano player himself, you know, and great musician, and Owen, you know,
Really, I mean, he was a really good musician.
Oh yeah, he was a great musician. He had a dance orchestra around here that played for the high society country club balls and this, that, and other, you know, and he was a musical director at WSM. At one time played piano and conducted the orchestra when they had an orchestra up there called the Waking Crew and all that, and so forth. Anyway, but he was just so great, and I played a lot of rhythm when I started, you know, and he didn't like piano rhythm. He liked he didn't like a lot of that hard Fats Domino rhythm, you know, like people like Shelby and other people liked, you know. So and he would cut in keys like F sharp and B and A flat, C sharp, you know. I was a D and an E and C man, you know.
And so, how mannerisms in the studio, was he really laid back, or was he, you know, pretty stern, or?
Yeah, he was pretty stern, but I mean, you had to get to know him later. I guess. Well, I got to know him in later years, and he mellowed too. You know, he wasn't as stern, or whatever word you want to use, as he was back then.
Was he really hands-on as far as telling you what to play, or did he give you the freedom to?
No. I mean, he would come out and work up the arrangement, you know, and kind of guide you. But if you had a lick, you know, he would listen to it, you know.
And Shelby, how'd you like working with Shelby?
Oh, I love Shelby. He was, you know, because I could whoop that Fats Domino rhythm on him, you know. And
He liked it.
oh yeah, he loved it.
And Shelby was the opposite. Then Shelby was not a musician,
Yeah, that's right.
but he had an incredible ear for songs.
He did, yeah, and he had ideas, you know. And he was never lost for an idea, you know.
He's still not.
Yeah.
You can see his gears moving as when you talk to him. But what about Cheryl?
Oh, I love Cheryl because he, yeah, you know, Cheryl's a great musician too, and he played piano and sax and this, that, and other, you know, and he was a songwriter. He knew all sides of the music industry, you know. He knew the engineering part and the mixing and the musical, and he had good arrangements, and I just loved working with him.
Very funny guy too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and Billy seemed to have a way in the studio. He knew how to get something changed without making somebody feel like they had made a mistake or wasn't up to what he was expecting. I mean, he could gently lead you in the direction he wanted to go, and you not really even know it.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
And Lou Bradley was I guess you probably worked with Lou a lot as engineer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sure did.
And Lou was, I don't hardly remember seeing Billy those early years without Lou.
Yeah.
Sitting next to him.
Yeah, they worked on Old B down there all the time.
And Snake.
Yeah. Snake come along and he worked upstairs in A.
What was it like working with Patsy Cline?
I like Patsy. She was, you know, she told it about like it was. You know, if she didn't like something, she'd let you know about it right quick.
Even the musicians?
Yeah.
And so
And her and Owen would get into it, you know. And
really?
yeah, they had a few, you know, it's no secret. They had a few discussions.
So she was pretty strong-willed then. I mean,
Oh
she
my
had her
God, yes, she was. She was very outspoken.
own. Loretta?
Loretta, yeah, I love Loretta. She was, you know, we was both country as
Cornbread?
cornbread. Yeah, that's good. So, you know, we got along good.
Did you ever work with Conway any?
Yeah, I worked with Conway to Loretta.
And there's a guy that really knew songs too.
Yeah, he did. He knew how to pick a song. Of course, Loretta knew how to write them too.
Mm-hmm. And sang them.
Oh yeah.
And what other George Jones records did you play on?
Oh.
Did you play on The Door?
Yeah.
He Stopped Loving Her Today?
Yeah, played on that. And a bunch of them back in the 60s.
Probably about everything that Billy did, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
Almost.
Pappy Daly did him before that. I worked a lot with Pappy when he'd do all the races on and that sort of thing.
What'd you play on with Dolly?
I played with Dolly and Porter. I never. Well, yeah, I did do one Dolly. I did some late things with Dolly. Jolene, I was on that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jolene?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Tanya Tucker?
Yeah, I did. I started with her when she started with Delta Dawn.
You did that with you did do
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Will You Lay With Me? And
Mm-hmm. How did you enjoy working with her?
oh, she was always fun to work with. You know, she was just a kid and
Was she 12?
loving every minute of it, you know.
12 years old then?
Yeah, 12, 13, somewhere along there when she started.
What did you play on with Willie?
I got some, when he first started out, Don't Touch Me is on Liberty, I think it was. And then I did some with him on, when he was on RCA. But I never was on none of his big hit records. You know, he never had any big ones till, you know, back
Stardust.
70s.
Yeah. What about Waylon?
Hmm?
Waylon Jennings.
Oh, Waylon, yeah, I did. I started with him too. You're the Only Daddy Can Walk the Line was probably the biggest one I did with him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of the earlier country things, The Choking Kind, I don't know if you remember that one or not.
Yeah.
But,
And Kenny Rogers, what'd you do with Kenny?
Kenny, I did The Gambler.
You did The Gambler? Really?
Yeah,
That's
and,
great. How was he to work with in the studio?
He was all right. He was, you know, he was pretty much business-like.
Yeah. So you were working with Larry Butler too then?
Yeah. Yeah, and I did Kenny and Dottie's duet things. Yeah.
Oh, the When Two Fools Collide?
Yeah.
That was a great record, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Old Butler did some great records.
And there's another guy that knew some songs, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Were you with Reba when she was with Jerry Kennedy?
Yeah, that's what I cut with her.
What all did you work on? Well, I guess you did the Statler Brothers too then.
Yeah, Statler's, yeah.
What's some of the ones you did with them?
Oh, I'll Go to My Grave Loving You.
Mm-hmm. That whole
The
80s.
nostalgia thing.
Do you remember these?
Yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm. What'd you do with Vince Gill?
I played on Pocket Full of Gold and some of that album, and then later I did the Key album with him.
What'd you play on for Travis Tritt?
Oh, Trouble, and I did several with him.
Mark Chestnut?
Too Cold at Home.
Yeah, well, that was the big one.
Yeah. Brother Jukebox and
Mm-hmm.